from our past to our present and to the future. Good afternoon, Madam Chairperson, honorable judges, ladies and gentlemen, and fellow speakers. It was May 20th, 1920, when my great-grandfather immigrated to Canada from England. He was 14 years old and brought along with him to this new land a treasure: 24 chicken eggs carried in shipping cartons. During the voyage, he gave them special care and was well rewarded when several of the eggs hatched. Canadian chickens from English eggs. This was his first farming enterprise. He worked with his father and brothers establishing a farm, undergoing the trials and tribulations encountered by most immigrants of the time. Poor living quarters, few cultivated acres, no machinery, a few head of livestock, and no money. However, with energy and enthusiasm for work, a viable farm operation was soon making favorable progress. In 1931, during the Great Depression, he bought his own farm. He had difficulties with his crops as a result of the drought, but with hard work and perseverance, he found his way around it, and the farm continued to grow. In 1969, his son, my grandfather, carried on in his footsteps. From colony houses to 150 farrow to finish swine operation and 150 purebred limousine cattle setup, the family farm continued to grow and expand. New John Deere machinery took over the fields as the old models were put to rest. The machinery was more efficient, with more sophisticated transmission systems, improved operator comfort, front and rear mounted tools, and better hydraulic systems. With this, the labor load was lightened. New techniques were slowly developed. The land was used, as generations did before, as a source of feed and bedding for the livestock. Most of the work was still done manually. However, innovation of modern facilities for the livestock, like self-watering and feeding systems, took over some of the tedious workload. Now, let's flash forward to our generation, where most of the privileges to them are now considered a standard to us. Today, farming has evolved into much larger operations, including livestock and field crop productions. The changing global economy is creating many new opportunities for Alberta's agri-food industry. Trade agreements, modern technology, transportation, and refined communication systems have expanded international access to goods and services. But as the global population increases, so will the demand for food and other agricultural products. Research conducted by the United Nations predicts that the world's population will increase from 7 billion to 9.6 billion by the year 2055. But this creates a problem, because this prediction indicates that the world will be unable to sustain this huge population increase. The demand for food, feed, and fiber will likely outpace food production if the current rate of output remains the same. And while Alberta's role as a volume producer of raw exports may be significant, our generation will somehow need to increase food productivity by 70%. This can all be done, potentially, by the implementation of genetically modified organisms, or better known as GMOs. The World Health Organization defines genetically modified organisms as organisms in which the genetic material has been altered in a way that does not occur naturally. It allows selected individual genes to be transferred from one organism into another. This includes non-related species. It is very similar to the methods behind the traditional selective breeding: choosing two certain genes, mixing them, and hoping for the best. However, by doing this in a lab, we are able to be more precise. We are able to choose certain genes from certain organisms to achieve the ultimate result. This process is known as genetic engineering or genetic modification. By genetically modifying plants, we can increase the production of food. We can modify these plants to improve their yield amount and to amplify their nutritional value, meaning just one plant will be able to produce more than ever before. Scientists support these findings and claim genetic engineering is better for the planet than traditional farming methods. Genetically engineered crops built to resist pests lower farmers' needs for toxic chemical pesticides, which reduce greenhouse gas emissions. This will also help us combat some of the rising issues associated with the changing climate that is caused by the high levels of greenhouse gases. And you may also be surprised to learn that agriculture uses about 70% of our fresh water supply. but it does make sense, because plants simply can't grow without water. As the world population increases, we'll need more water for our personal use, but we'll also need more to grow our food. Since our freshwater supplies are limited, it makes sense for us to pursue innovations that help us use water more efficiently. Genetically engineered plants can be modified to improve their ability to grow in water-limited drought conditions. Current GMO products are not limited to foods, but include several beneficial products, including medicines such as insulin, vaccines, animal feeds, and fibers. Only 4 genetically engineered crops are currently grown in Canada: canola, corn, soy, and sugar beet. These crops end up on our grocery store shelves as processed food ingredients. They're also widely used for animal feeds. The UC Davis review states that food-producing animals, such as cows, pigs, goats, and chickens, now consume 80% of all genetically engineered crops. At present time, there are no genetically modified animals in the world approved for human consumption. However, scientific research shows that there are numerous ways in which GMO livestock could potentially contribute to society. We need to focus on the important roles that our generation will have in helping to sustain a future for our world. The genetically modified organisms under development today, along with improved farming methods, will help us to meet the challenges of tomorrow. Quote, "My grandfather used to say, once in your life, you need a doctor, a lawyer, a policeman, and a preacher. But every day, 3 times a day, you need a farmer." End quote. Brenda Shaw. Our grandparents' generation yielded to new innovations in agriculture. And now it's our turn. We need to make sure that we can sustain a future for our world's table.